From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have Adrian Tobey, who I've known for a long time, join me to talk about his CRM that runs inside WordPress called Groundhog. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and learn a little bit more about Groundhog as Adrian and I talk about it. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. Today I'm here with Adrian Tobey of Groundhog fame. How are you today, Adrian?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We've known each other, I don't know, I was thinking before we went to record about 6 or 7 years, give or take, back to when I was doing courses at your dad's agent and mom's agency, right? So
it's been a while, yeah.
It's been a long time. And we were kind of reminiscing the other day in a chat that it's been a long time since we've seen each other, probably for, I would think, 3 or 4 years now, at least.
Well, in-person events kind of took a dive. So,
yeah. So what I wanted to start with was, how did you get into WordPress, digital marketing, and then come up with Groundhog? And I want to preface this by saying a little bit. I can remember being in the Training Business Pros office and you at one time showing me something you were working on, which sort of now I realize morphed into Groundhog after the fact. So how did that all come about?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, you used to swing by our office, which used to be at the corner of York Mills and Leslie in Toronto. We had a fairly significant space. We had like a 5,000 square foot training room with like 20-foot ceilings or something, big stage with TVs on it, and weekly we'd host the Business Pros meeting, the Business Pros Hour, and you loved to come to those, and we had a few other regulars as well, and we usually had maybe anywhere between 10, 20 people in the room on a Thursday morning, I think it was, or a Friday morning. And the reason that we held those events is because our agency, the family business agency, was heavily invested into a CRM and marketing automation product called Infusionsoft, which was rebranded a few years back to Keep, which is what's now called. And then they have like Infusionsoft Pro and like Keep Pro, and it's a very confusing product roster. But I digress. We worked a lot with that company, and they were like, our agency partners, of which we were the largest in Canada at the time. Our agency partners, we want you to host these in-person events. You can call it the business hour, and basically, during this hour, you train on Infusionsoft and you sell Infusionsoft to new people who might need it, and that was fairly effective. Or at least we think it was effective. We sold a lot of Infusionsoft, and we showed people how to integrate it with WordPress. I had a product called FormLift. I have a product called FormLift, which its sole purpose is to enable small businesses to add forms to their WordPress site that actually integrate properly with Infusionsoft. Because if you're using WordPress and Infusionsoft, you might be familiar with the absolute pain in the butt it is to integrate those two products without spending lots of money on third-party products like WP Fusion or like specialty products that integrate WooCommerce like InfusedWoo. And there's a bunch of sort of like Infusionsoft specific product creators for WordPress, and all of those products are relatively expensive because Infusionsoft is relatively expensive. Fast forward a few years from us starting our journey with that company, we identified a number of deficiencies that existed in integrating WordPress and CRM and marketing automation. Number one of those deficiencies was the price. And once you're all in invested in Infusionsoft, the old Infusionsoft started around maybe like $200 a month, and then only scaled up from there rather exponentially, depending on the size of your list. And you had to invest in all of the like third-party add-ons to integrate it. So MemberPret or Memberium or like Infused Woo or WP Fusion. So you had all those different products that you had to invest in. And then, so at the end of the year, you're like $3,000 invested into using Infusionsoft. And that was a large barrier to entry for a lot of small businesses who were like, well, listen, I learned about marketing automation yesterday and you want me to invest, like $3,000 like upfront, like from the get-go. And it's like, whoa. And on top of that, you also have you're paying us, the agency, for a brand new website and the expertise and setting it all up and everything, right? CRM and marketing automation can often take time. Like it's not a silver bullet to your business problems. It's not. It takes time to set up, and it can often take time to see the results and effects of the things that you use it for. But when you're spending that kind of money, you're kind of looking for that sort of instant gratification. It's like, all right, well, I paid all this money. Where are my results at 3, 4, 5 months in? And if you're not seeing the results that you were expecting, then it just turns into a poor customer experience. We experienced a lot of churn with them with Infusionsoft because they're seeing the monthly charge on their credit card. We had customers in Infusionsoft paying upwards of $700 a month, and they're looking at the credit card and like, well, how much is this actually making me? Like, what's my ROI on this product?
Yeah. And
a lot of times it was difficult to prove ROI too, because just the tracking wasn't there. Especially when it came to like WooCommerce and e-commerce stuff, like the tracking just wasn't there to say, well, this email generated how much revenue? Well, we don't know. And it's kind of like, well, then what am I paying for if you don't know? Like if it's not producing any revenue or return on investment, what the heck am I paying it for?
Yep.
And that was a problem. So that was another deficiency. So there was the price and obviously that sort of barrier to entry. And then when we were able to get past the price, it was, okay, well, how do I prove ROI? And that was oftentimes difficult. We had like these, I'm sure you remember, we trained on these like super advanced tagging strategies.
I do.
Yeah. And
I still use them today, actually, believe it or not.
But you're a pro, right? By this point, for someone who's new, it's like right over your head, right? You have to be sort of like ingrained in the biz for a while to when it clicks and you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the tracking just wasn't built in, so you had to use these like complex strategies and set up your custom dashboards and everything.
Yep.
And for like a solopreneur, a small business who's like a do-it-themselveser, a DIYer, it was too much to ask a lot of the time.
Yep.
And they probably would have been better off with like a simpler product, maybe like ConvertKit, which now exists, or there's a bunch of them now. I think ConvertKit's kind of like probably like the easiest, and in terms of like the SaaS products that exist, I feel like ConvertKit's probably the easiest for like solopreneurs, creators to get into. Mm-hmm. Besides Groundhog, obviously.
I want to stop you for a minute. We talk about these tagging strategies, and to go on a tangent, the reason you need to, and I still believe as a pro you need to have tagging strategies, is you need to know where people are in your sequences and your automation. And without building advanced tagging strategies, how do you know and how do you measure? And I kind of describe it to people like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded and going splat and saying, okay, I'll pull A off the wall or I'll pull B off the wall. And I think that's a mistake for a lot of people. They try and oversimplify CRM office automation, and it's a big mistake, in my opinion.
Well, you could be right, but I look at what you just said, and like you have to have like these advanced tagging strategies, and you have to have this custom dashboard. Yeah. And when we were thinking about, well, how can we make this easier? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, what if we just got rid of that, and we made it so that when you actually built like a funnel or a campaign, it would just create that reporting for you.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to know how to do it. It would just be readily available. Yeah. And when we were building Groundhog, it was like, that was at the forefront of my mind, was like, how can we show to people that when they're paying for Groundhog, they're actually getting return on their investment?
Yep.
And it all comes down to reporting. So we spent a massive amount of time working on our reporting dashboard. So that if you like created a funnel, let's just say you have like a contact form, and then you had an automated follow-up email, and you wanted to track if that person turned into a lead. Well, how would you do that? With a traditional CRM system that doesn't have the kind of reporting that Groundhog offers, you have to set up a tag. All right, so have a tag that they submitted the contact form, and then you have to tag they created or became a lead, and then you'd have to remove the tag that they submitted the contact form, and then you'd have to go and create a custom widget in your dashboard, find those tags, and then set that up, and there you go.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, well, I don't want to have to do any of that. And it's like, if I just create the funnel and I have, all right, starts when someone submits this form, we send an email, and then when they become a lead, the funnel's over, and we can track that as a conversion, and the system automatically knows that that's a conversion, or that's the conversion action. Then you just go to the specific report for that funnel, and it says, 15% of people who submitted this form then became a lead.
Yeah.
And you just have to go to the dashboard, pull up the funnel, and it just generates that report. You can see at each step where people are and the conversion rate in between each step in the funnel as well. So that the whole like tagging thing and having to know and understand how to do that was completely removed, so that when people asked, is this producing revenue? Am I getting return on my investment? We could just point to that report and say absolutely 110%. Yeah. Without any ambiguity. And it's always like retroactive and everything. And if you have a funnel running for a month and then you set up the tags, you don't have that reporting. Like that's just lost to you now. No. And that was also a big problem.
I agree.
And then we have automatic, like if you're using our WooCommerce integration or EDD integration or GiveWP integration, there is an automatic correlation of like marketing activities to revenue. So when someone donates or someone buys a product, Groundhog knows, okay, they came from this funnel, they clicked on a link in this email, and we can tell the person that this email generated $400 today or something like that. And that was immensely important to me. Again, all about just being able to prove ROI. So that was our second sort of, or reason behind building this kind of product.
Yeah, I would agree. How did you come up with the name Groundhog? There's got to be a story there, and I haven't heard it. I have to tell you, I love the name, and I love the mascot, and I want one, but that's another story.
Yeah. So, one of my all-time favorite movies is Groundhog Day. Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. It's classic. I want to say 93. And the story of Groundhog Day is it's about a weatherman, and he's sent to Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, where Groundhog Day, a North American ritual in which basically large rat comes out of a hole, and if he sees his shadow, we have 6 more weeks of winter, and if he doesn't, then we are going to have an early spring. And that's sort of the ritual. And there's a ton of origin stories of where Groundhog Day, but it's kind of just like one of those folklore mysteries, and now we just do it just because it's always been done. And sometimes it's accurate. More often than not, it's inaccurate, but it's a fun, and tens of thousands of people make a pilgrimage to Puxatawny every year. I have actually yet to go. It's on my bucket list, considering I'm like so heavily invested in the brand. But so the story is of a weatherman. He goes to Puxatawny, and he's an incredibly selfish individual. He thinks he's king of the world, and he's very rude and lewd, and he's just a generally like poor example of a human being. And he does the broadcast. He does it half-heartedly, and his crew is kind of like peeved at him, and they have to sleep in Puxatawny because there's a big storm that he obviously predicted there wouldn't be, but the storm came anyway. and they're stuck there and they have to sleep there. And the next morning he wakes up and it's a replay of Groundhog Day again. And he thinks he's just having a bad dream, and then it keeps happening. He keeps waking up, and it's always February 2nd. It's always Groundhog Day. And then basically over the times where he's in this time loop, he starts refocusing his life to being sort of like self-centered and all about me and all about him. And he's wallowing in self-pity and guilt and grief and a whole lot of things. And then he sort of like, it kind of clicks that he can actually use this time to be in service of others. So he makes a transition from being in service of himself to helping a homeless man have, a meal and trying to save him from dying in the alley when it's like below freezing. He helps 4 old women in their car who get a flat and changes their car tire for them. He saves a kid from falling out of a tree and breaking his leg. And he kind of goes through this whole day where he spends every second of it just being in service of others, going from person to person, and basically saving them from utter catastrophe. And then at the end of the day, he gets the girl, and there's a B plot of like him trying to woo this girl this entire time, and he gets the girl. And when he wakes up, it's finally February 3rd. And he went through this whole spiritual journey of being in service of himself to being in service of others. So Groundhog is, when we created this product, the fact that it's open source, the fact that it's kind of putting power into the hands of the owners rather than in our hands. Like if you can't pay, it's not a big deal. You just don't get updates, but everything still continues to work. You're in ownership of all of your data. You have full control over the code because it's open source. And me personally, I've always been someone who's at least attempted to always be in service of. And that's just generally the vibe of Groundhog. It's just we're here to be in service of, and we're not necessarily here just to be in service of ourselves, although it's nice to make money. At the end of the day, our ultimate goal is to make sure that our customers are successful, and we're not making money at their expense, right? Which can't be said of a lot of people in our market, and that's kind of the big thing. And there's also themes in Groundhog Day, the movie, of sort of this awakening, this understanding, this transition period. And Groundhog, the company, and not necessarily the product, spends a lot of time on creating education, on creating videos, on fostering creativity to help entrepreneurs and small businesses experience a similar awakening, so that the transition can be made from sort of focusing on the self and being in service of yourself to making that transition to being in service of others. No, that's where the name comes from.
I would agree with that. And that's an amazing story, Adrian. Let's talk CRMs in general before we get into some specifics. So I think one of the mistakes that solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses make is they try and do everything manually. And we know one of the biggest things they don't do really well is follow-up. How can a CRM help with all of that?
So the reason why a small business would want to procure or use a CRM and marketing automation tool is when you are no longer able to do everything by yourself manually. So whenever we start out a new project or a new venture or a new business, people will tell you, do things that don't scale. And I think that's a great piece of advice. So answer emails yourself, answer support tickets, do whatever you need to do, and just do it manually for a while, because that's going to help you learn a lot. It's going to help you connect with your audience. It's going to enable you to identify systems and processes that your business is missing. And then when you get to a point where you're getting overwhelmed with the amount of work, that is when you should begin to introduce things like automation into the mix in order to allow you to not do those things anymore, and that they're just taken care of automatically, and you can go focus to other things that don't scale. So I think I'm just gonna go off on a tangent for a second.
Sure.
When people hear about CRM and marketing automation a lot of the time, and this is part of my like being in service of others and just letting you know what you're in for and letting you know sort of like, the hard truth of it. A lot of companies and a lot of people in our sector market CRM and marketing automation as sort of like the silver bullet to fix all your business problems. And that's just not true. It really isn't. They say like, there's a saying that money amplifies who you are, rather, or they say money is the root of all evil. I don't actually believe that. Money is just money allows or amplifies who you are as an individual and as a being. If you are a generous and spiritually awakened person and you come into a lot of money, I imagine that you're probably going to continue to be an incredibly generous and spiritually awakened person, rather than, if you're not a great, or you're not typically a generous person, or you choose to do certain things with your money that aren't necessarily in the service of others. If you get into a bunch of money, I don't think that will probably change. And CRM marketing automation is kind of like the same thing, but for your business. If your business is doing really well and doing gangbusters, then CRM and marketing automation, when implemented in your business, will only amplify the amount of people that you're able to serve at any given time. If your business isn't doing a whole lot of anything, adding CRM and marketing automation isn't going to help your business do a lot more. It's just going to continue to do a whole lot of nothing. And that is a huge thing that sort of like the people who generally market this kind of product don't tell you. So I just want to put that out there. If you're being overwhelmed with the amount of business that you're doing right now, and you don't have CRM and marketing automation, adding it to your business is going to just allow you to help more people at the same time. And it's going to allow you to do so much more. And it's going to allow you to solve a lot of problems that you have in your business, maybe with churn, maybe with following up with leads, maybe with reporting and being able to analyze marketing efforts in your business. But if you don't have any business, adding this product is not going to get you business. You have to have, people showing up. You have to have people coming in the door. You have to have people coming to the website. You have to be out there. You have to be marketing. You have to be buying ads. You have to be doing podcasts. You have to be speaking with Rob, obviously.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That thing, those things have to precede adding CRM and marketing automation. Yep. So if you are being overwhelmed, that's when this is a product that you need.
That's a really interesting philosophy, but one I agree with. Products don't fix the business problem; they just help it, and I really believe that. We'll talk a little bit about types of CRM funnels, which is something you're really good at. What is the one or two typical funnels that a business agency should set up right out of the go if they go to a product like Groundhog?
Yeah, I recently, we had Groundhog Day last month on February 2nd. It was the first time we'd ever run sort of like a kind of like full day event. I think it went pretty well. And I actually had a training on this exact topic. I put together 5 sort of just like blanket funnels that you need and are pretty much applicable to every kind of business. And I'm going to see if I can remember all of them from the top of my head. Let's start off with every business can benefit from some kind of like onboarding funnel. Mm-hmm. So a new customer onboarding funnel or a new lead onboarding funnel. And basically what that is a lot of companies have maybe in the footer of their website says subscribe here, stay notified, or, they get a lead through their sign up process, or, they get an email address through the checkout. And it's like, what do you do with that? Right. So now you have their information. How do you actually leverage that information in order to create more wealth or understanding, or prevent churn or prevent refunds? That's a great reason why you should have an onboarding funnel. It's, people don't necessarily just get it after they buy. A lot of people think that the customer journey ends at the checkout page. It does not. It's really only the start of the customer journey. There's so much more work that you have to do in terms of communication with customers after the checkout page. I digress. But for an onboarding funnel, you might say, hey, listen, welcome to the Groundhog family. It's great to have you here. I'm Adrian, and if you ever need any help, here are the resources that you have access to. You can go join the Facebook group, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and all these different action items. You have like 14 days to try out Groundhog in your trial or whatever. And basically it's just an opportunity to introduce your organization beyond maybe the materials that they've already read on your website and your blog, and do it from a more personal tone, right? You're emailing them. It's in their inbox. And whenever you're emailing someone in their inbox, you should be initiating some sort of conversation. Because that's just a lot more effective than sort of just email blasting and saying, buy this product or else. Yep. So having a conversation, establishing trust, that goes a long way. And one of the best ways you can do that is through the inbox where people have conversations, Mm-hmm. So you can send a few emails in your onboarding funnel, maybe 3 over 3 days or 5 over 7 days. Depending on your audience, the frequency of emails that you might want to send might differ. But it's an opportunity for you to establish a bond, establish trust, and establish some sort of conversational relationship that is going to allow you to build future transactions on. If they want to renew, if they want to upgrade, if they want to procure your services for some time in the future, that is your opportunity to do that. Another funnel that I think every business should have, especially the e-commerce businesses, is people are pretty savvy shoppers online these days, right? People Google Groundhog discount, right? They just do that. And so there's a couple ways that you can handle that. So if someone Googles Groundhog discount, do you want them going to like a discount site, or do you want them going to your site? Like, where do you want them to go? Like, you want them to go to your site. And so what should you do? You should give them a discount. There's a lot of businesses that I've met over the years that are like, well, I'm not giving any discounts away, and because our product is worth full price and blah blah blah. And I'm like, that might be so, but like, would you rather have the business, or would you rather not give them a discount? Like, just bake it into the price and then give them a discount. Like, they don't know.
and then the old trick is to go to your shopping cart and buy something and let it sit in the cart for 24 hours to see if they give you a discount to buy it.
Like, people, I do that.
I do too. So
I do that. Like, yeah. I think our email sends within a few hours, not 15 minutes. We let it sit for a minute. Maybe I should turn it down to 15 minutes. I don't know. I should split test that at some point. But
yeah.
If you go to the footer of groundhog.io, there is a form, and it literally says above the form, subscribe and get 15% off. Yep. On every single page, without fail. And it's always there. It's perpetually there. And that form turns around 1% of monthly site visits into a lead. Yep. And has around a 15% conversion rate.
And what I like with that form is there's no false scarcity. I mean, we all know in the digital product, the old day used to be you throw up a timer and say you have 2 days to buy this or 1 day to buy this. Well, I think we got to get past that. I think that's truthfully a tactic that was so 5 or 6 years ago and not a current one. Most of the shoppers online get it.
Especially in like the software biz, like, because we know, like we know what it is. Like the people who are buying Groundhog are pretty aware of like the products that are offered that we could use to kind of drum up fake scarcity. And it's just like, we prefer to just be honest and be like, hey, listen, this form is here 24/7. If you want 15% off, all you got to do is you just got to give us your email address and we'll send you the discount code. Like, that's it. It's as easy as that.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised about like the vast majority of sales on Groundhog.io still come through at full price. Like, you'd be surprised. Like, people just a lot of people don't look. They'll just pay whatever you ask them to. But the people who are like the savvy shoppers and the discount hunters, they scroll down to the bottom of the website and they look for where it says discount code. They do Control F and they look for the discount code on the web page. And if they're doing that, why not give them something that they can take action on? Yep. Like, why prevent that? Like, why create an experience for them that is going to result in them not having a good customer experience? I find it would be much better to just give them what they're looking for, give them a discount, and eat it or whatever. Or if that's what you're worried about, work the discount into the margins.
I like that
Right?
philosophy, and a company that does that so well off the digital space in Ontario is Loblaws. You go into Loblaws, you show your optimum card, they calculate your points, and when you hit 10,000 points, you have $10 to spend. No questions asked, no ifs, no ands, no buts. I mean, that's the cost of admission is your email address, and that gets you your 15% with Groundhog.
And it's incredibly effective. I mean, it's hard to argue with we get a lot of traffic. 1%, 1 to 2% of all site visitors are turned into a lead, no questions asked. And 10 to 15% of those people end up buying immediately after getting that discount code.
That's good.
And we have a very low refund rate. It's hard to argue with those results, right? So anybody who's thinking like, I don't want to do a discount code, I don't want to do that, just try it. You can always take it away. You can always turn it off, right? Yep. Anyway. So that's something that's just incredibly effective and really easy to set up, frankly, with Groundhog. Yep. And we don't do some people want to do they auto generate the discount code, and Groundhog does that with like WooCommerce and EDD, where you can generate like a single use discount code that does expire to like build in that sort of scarcity. And it's like, I don't do that. I have a different discount. The way that I approach like discount codes, just on a tangent here, is I have a different discount code for where they get that discount code. So I can track, in my reports, like where are people getting the code, so I can sort of track the effectiveness in my e-commerce reporting directly.
That's a really smart move, actually. That comes back to what we talked about, knowing your numbers and knowing where things are coming from. Yep.
Yeah, so I love to use because if you use the auto-generated discount code and you have a few areas where that discount code is generated, you don't know where it really came from. Like a lot like WooCommerce doesn't have that kind of reporting built into it. So, and easy digital downloads definitely does not.
No question.
So I have I found 15 off is the 15% discount code that you get from the footer, because they scrolled to the bottom, they found it. So we called it I found 15 off, and I thought that was kind of cute and clever. We have a pop-up. So if you like an exit intent pop-up on the checkout page. So if you go to the checkout page and you try and leave the checkout page, the pop-up comes up and hey, listen, get 15% off. Right now, click here. And that code is one time get 15 off, I think. And then, there's a whole host of other ones. Those are the two main ones.
Yep. What really?
And then we have, and I'll just, as an aside, I have this last one, and this one's kind of sneaky. Okay. So people will go to the checkout page and they'll just enter random stuff in the discount area. You know that? No. We have heat maps. We can tell. We know. They enter the most test 100 to see if, we left a test 100% off discount code in there somewhere. And people have been around the block a few times, so they try a few things out. Right. And what are the chances that they're actually going to guess something correctly? It's not a lot, but people try. They try. And if they do try and they hit an invalid discount code, guess what we do?
You give them 15%.
We give them 15% off anyway.
I love that.
Right? Because they do that, right? They do that, and then they see that their order total changes. Oh my God, I beat the system. And then they go and buy.
Where the system beat you.
Yeah. We beat the system, and I'm yeah, that's what you think. And then it works great. And I can see, again, and the discount code for that is invalid_discount. And it gives them 50% off anyway. And then I can see, in the reports, this many people tried to get away with a clever discount code. I'm that's cool. And now I know. Yeah. It's amazing how many people do that. It really is. Yeah. And I didn't actually come up with that. That's something that Awesome Motive does with all of their products.
They do. Yep.
Yeah, and they're pretty heavily invested in the whole fake scarcity thing. But some of their strategies are worth their weight in gold. That one. That one works really well.
Yep. Moving forward, one of the things that's always impressed me with Groundhog is the number of integrations that you have, and you have a number. And I was even talking to Markup at WS Forms lately, who I'm sure you know.
Mark Westgard is really one of those salt of the earth. Yeah. Talk about someone who is also in service of other. I love to work. We have a fairly cliquey WordPress developer community like surrounding.
We do.
Not surrounding Groundhog, but Groundhog, we're heavily buddy with like Lefter LMS and Mark Westgard and WP Fusion, and there's just people in the community that you just connect with.
Yep.
And Mark Westgard is definitely one of those people.
Mark's one of those, and Chris is one of those. It's funny. He did a talk at WordFest the other day, and the first thing he said to me, "You're from Toronto. Do you know Adrian?" I said, "Of course I do." So the community is pretty small, and people don't understand that. Yeah, and Mark's got a Groundhog integration, and you've got some other integrations. What does Groundhog integrate with really well?
Pretty much any of like the top echelon WordPress plugins that businesses would use for e-commerce courses and communities, and forms. Every single form builder. Like you name a form builder, we got an integration for it.
What is your number one used integration out of the pile? Do you have one?
It has to be WooCommerce. Yeah. It's WooCommerce followed up by LearnDash. And then Lifter LMS, I think, after that.
Yeah, because it's funny, WooCommerce actually bought MailPoet, which for those who don't know is another email package, and they really haven't done anything with it, to be honest with you. Like it's the same old product it was 2 years ago, and everything.
It is. It's a shame because acquisition is often the death of products like this because they are sort of products unto themselves. And they are their own beasts. And they require a certain amount of attention. The market moves quickly. Technology moves quickly.
Yep.
Customer needs and demands move quickly.
Yep.
And when sort of like a larger organization, purchases one of these and integrates the product into like the rest of their team, it's like, no one wants to work on it because it's kind of like if you start working on it, you won't stop.
Yeah. Oh, it's true. As you well know yourself, right?
As I well know, 3.5 years in, we saw that with one of our competitors. So Zero BS CRM used to be called, got bought by Jetpack Automatic and got rebranded to Jetpack CRM, and it hasn't been updated in forever. It's received no love. It's received no nothing.
That is so not uncommon in this space. I hate to say. In terms of running Groundhog runs inside the WordPress dashboard, which means for a small entrepreneur or a small business, they have one place to go to the WordPress website to update everything. The drawback, if you talk to a lot of people, is do I want to run a Groundhog marketing automation? Do I want to run a learning system? Do I want to learn a help desk system in WordPress because that will slow it down? What is your answer to that?
That is sort of the main objection that I do get. And there are there's a few pros and cons to like self-hosting, which is what we in the biz kind of talk about when we run our own systems. And the pros are, number one, it's open source. So if something goes wrong, you can fix it or you can get someone else to fix it. And you are, it is totally within your possibility to solve problems, right? Whereas with like a SaaS company or like, software as a service company, you're pretty much at the mercy of like their development team for what happens.
Yep.
Also, because it's open source, you're open to adding your own integrations and sort of like customizing dashboards and adding your own stuff. And again, if you're using a SaaS, that's just not possible. You're not able to add your own stuff or tailor it to your specific needs. You are complete control over your data. So data ownership and privacy has been a big reason why we've seen a lot of success over the last 3.5 years, especially in Europe and in Germany, where the data protection laws are pretty strict. You can spin up a Groundhog on a WordPress website and host it on a server in Germany, and that just keeps you in complete compliance. So you don't need any like special lawyers to look over data protection agreements and your privacy policy, and all of that stuff can be skipped just by self-hosting.
Yep.
if you stop paying, right, since you are in control of the code, it's self-hosted. If for some reason you can't pay like the renewal bill, everything will still work. It's not, we don't like shut off Groundhog for you. You're going to continue to experience basically the same system as when you last renewed. So if you can't renew immediately, then you're not at risk of losing all your data or having your email turned off. That can say, again, the same can't be said for our software as a service counterparts. If you stop paying, you lose your account, and that's that. Or they lock it until you pay up again. And that could be, if like you got to meet, it's the choice between CRM and payroll. Like, what are you paying? And just generally speaking, like the reason that we serve the product the way we do is to make you the captain of your own ship, right? Think of like using Groundhog, and this is an analogy that I used with someone the other day while I was doing a sales call, because I still do those. Do things that don't scale, right? Yeah. So I was doing a sales call, and I think of Groundhog as like being the captain of your own yacht, right? You have a 40-foot sailboat or something, and you can choose where you want to go, right? But you're on a yacht, right? So you're not sharing services with a whole bunch of other people. If there is a problem, you are like ultimately responsible, and so on and so forth. But it feels good to be the captain of your own ship. Versus if you decide to go with like a provider like HubSpot, ActiveCampaign, Keep Salesforce, think of it as being like a passenger on a cruise ship. The cruise ship is going where the cruise ship is going, and you're just along for the ride, right? You can sort of like plan your activities within the confines of the list of available activities, but beyond that, it's kind of just like you're given, you get what you pay for. So it's kind of like ownership and flexibility over sort of like safety and just kind of going with it, right? So, and the con when choosing to be the captain of ship is like sometimes stuff does go wrong. It happens, you update a plugin and WordPress breaks or whatever, or you're messing around with the code and you messed with the wrong line and something happens, and you forget to pay your email service provider bill, and all of a sudden none of your emails are going out. And that's sort of like, being the captain of your ship comes with responsibility. And some people don't want that responsibility. And I totally get that. But if you're okay with accepting that responsibility, there are significant cost savings to be had. You solve a lot of privacy issues, and it feels pretty good to be like in control. And that's probably the main thing. To circle back to your original question, does it slow anything down? And this has been sort of like a conflict within WordPress naysayers and WordPress promoters for the last 15 years that WordPress is. How many years has it been, Rob? You would know.
I don't know. I lose track, but I've been in the WordPress community now. I'm going on about 17 years. So
17. So it's been a while, and adding plugins to my website slows it down has kind of just been like the number one thing that people like to point out when they say don't self-host, right?
Yep.
But the reality is that the infrastructure for self-hosting has vastly improved over the last 17 years.
Yeah, and I would agree with you in a big way.
The newest versions of like PHP, so the underlying framework, a lot of the JavaScript that people are now using, and just like the general building blocks of WordPress sites these days are much, 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 much better than they used to be. Yep. And developers in general, and certainly our team, have gotten a lot smarter about how to actually build these sort of behemoth platforms. And basically just like these big apps that you put on your WordPress website to run incredibly efficiently. And to play nice with each other and not to just totally demolish a website's speed, right? Yep. Honestly, plugins are probably, like at this point in time, have the least amount of impact. At least well-coded plugins have the least amount of impact on site speed. The big things that affect site speed are now the underlying infrastructure. What version of PHP are you on? What version of MariaDB are you using? Who do you host with? Do you have caching? Like, is the caching's not set up correctly? Like, there's like all this sort of like server techie underlying infrastructure stuff that's going to have a way bigger impact on your site speed than the actual plugins that you're using. And certainly Groundhog is not in the last 3.5 years have we ever received a review or a complaint that accused us of making someone's website slower because they were running Groundhog. We've never received that. And the reason is because plugins like this are no longer a hindrance on website speed, just because a lot of that stuff has been solved. It's not a problem anymore.
I think actually page builders are more of a hindrance, depending on which one you go, or themes like Aveda, which has a built-in page builder, are more of a hindrance than plugins like Groundhog, in my opinion. And what I would say to that is, then anybody thinking about WordPress speed should really look at Gutenberg blocks, to be honest.
I want to migrate my site to like a full Gutenberg build so bad. I built my personal site.
I did.
Adrian Tobey.
I did, Adrian. I took my agency site and I moved from an Aveda-based site to Gutenberg. I'm running Cadence framework. So Cadence blocks, shout out to the guys over at Stellar and Cadence. And I added 15 points to my GT metric score overnight.
Groundhog. I mean, we've been using Elementor since we started. We built the original site using the Elementor page builder, and I love Elementor. Don't get me wrong; I think it's a fantastic product. Yep. But it does add a few points to your if you actually look at our GT metric score, and our page speed score on Google, it's atrocious. It's really terrible. And honestly, I just can't be bothered to really spend any time there because as far as our numbers go and our analytics, people have to come to the site. And the fact that it takes an extra second to load doesn't really seem to impact anything. And if you look for Groundhog, on Google or WordPress CRM, we show up anyway. So it's
Yeah, I know. It's the which way do you want to go? And it's so funny because I've actually got on my front page, I have an external HTML call that brings in a list of podcasts on my main page, and that didn't even shoot my GT metric score, which is unreal. And it's, it was an interesting experiment, which leads me to my next question. Is Groundhog Gutenberg ready?
Well, considering the fact that Groundhog is an administrative tool, it's customer, it doesn't have the only block that it had, it does register a block. It registers a form block, which basically just allows you to embed the Groundhog form in a Gutenberg page, and that's the only block it registers because that's the only thing that customers are ever really going to see. All of the preferences center stuff and a lot of that stuff is as Groundhog has a special it takes over the entire page and has its own theme stuff to show a standardized unsubscribe page and email preferences center for every single client. So if you ever see that kind of preferences center, they're using Groundhog. And that's the reason for that is compliance, privacy laws, and it's just easier for us to be this is the way that it is. Versus letting people kind of create their own systems and basically getting themselves into legal trouble. Yeah. But as far as being Gutenberg ready, there's nothing for us to really be ready for. You log into the admin and you have your contacts there. You have your emails, you have your deals, your pipeline, your funnels, and your reports and your dashboard and all that stuff. And basically, Groundhog is for the administrator or the salesperson, not necessarily for the site visitor until they get an email, which happens in their inbox, which we have a special email builder for because not all Gutenberg blocks are going to be email compatible. And most HTML and CSS, I get questions sometimes I got one today. Someone messaged me this morning can you build an email with Elementor? No, you can't. JavaScript, CSS, and a lot of HTML5 markup just doesn't work in an email client,
especially in Microsoft Outlook.
Microsoft Outlook is
our existence.
Microsoft Outlook's HTML renderer. Do you know what they actually use to render documents in Outlook? They use the Microsoft word processor.
Yeah, it's awful.
and not even the updated one, the ancient one from Microsoft Vista.
It is so awful. I did a contract long term with a company running their email automation. And I got to tell you, the games that had to be played because of Microsoft Outlook was ridiculous. And trying to get things to be Outlook compatible and smartphone compatible, because half of our clients read emails on a smartphone, was even worse. The minute you deal with Outlook, it is like the bane of everybody's existence in this game.
Yeah, so when designing emails, we have a special builder to make sure that it's compatible across all email clients, so everybody gets to see the same content and have it like properly formatted. Yeah. If you like, you can go to nuts, or you can go nuts. You can go to town on a MailChimp, on the MailChimp email builder, and then you can send it to someone with an Outlook address, and it's just like, oh, that's what they see. That's not what I see in like the builder and my Chrome browser, right? It's a totally different experience.
Yeah, so true. Adrian, thanks for joining me and talking about Groundhog. I think it's a great alternative or a great product for small business units. If somebody wants to check out the product or get a hold of you, how's the best way?
So they can go to Groundhog with 2 G's, GROUNDHOGG.io. Someone owns the .com, and I've been messaging them for 3.5 years to sell it to me. They never reply. But it's Groundhog with 2Gs.io, and basically your journey can begin there. If you want to try out the product, we have a 14-day refund guarantee, and you can get 50% off by just going to the footer. And there's a forum there. You can give us your email address, and we'll send you a discount code. Unsubscribe at any time. You want to learn more about me personally and see some of the other shows and podcasts that I've done over the years, you can go to adriantobey.com, TOBEY.com. And this show will end up there, and all of my other interviews, and we talk about some of the things that we talked about in other contexts. If you want to do sort of like a 14-day kind of demo of Groundhog that only costs $1 rather than paying like the $480 up front, you can go to groundhog2gs.io/try. And that'll get you into a $1 14-day demo, and it includes like pretty much everything that we offer on your own little sandbox staging site that you can play with and break and do whatever. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, I think that's what I got.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me today, Adrian. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. A very special thank you to Adrian for joining me today to talk about his CRM that he developed called Groundhog. Check it out if you want a CRM that runs with inside WordPress. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.